Welcome, 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 folks. So we see you arriving here on Zoom. And also arriving is our guests from the more than human world, as always in our services. Wondering if you can figure out who I've invited today. Feel like you should get 100% on this one, folks. Yeah. Welcome humans, welcome humans, welcome turkeys. A couple of interesting tidbits about them. Turkeys are capable of flying 60 miles per hour. They have eyesight better than 20/20. I'm jealous. And can see 270 degrees in their field of vision, which is about double that of us. And if you've ever been to an animal sanctuary and met a turkey that was rescued from being farmed, you are likely to know that they form close relationships and complex groups, that they often care for hatchlings that are not even in their own lineage. Turkeys are amazing. Welcome to the Compassion Consortium Sunday service. I'm Reverend Sarah. I'm joined today by co-founders Victoria Moran and Reverend William Melton, as well as Phil and Elaine. To ensure we don't have unwanted or disruptive guests, we've turned off most of the Zoom sharing functions. We meet for Sunday service once each month, and that's now on the third Sunday of each month. And today is our very, very special Friends and Family service to coincide with this week's celebration of Thanksgiving here in the U.S. If you're new to us, welcome. We are an interfaith, interspiritual, and interspecies community. Interfaith means we welcome people of any religion or spiritual path or system of meaning making, and we feature a diverse range of those within our programming. So today we'll be talking with Linda Fisher, a member of the Ojibwe Native American tribe, as well as William Radinson, who will be sharing about his work on the intersection of Catholic social teaching and animal concerns. Interspiritual is a term coined by Brother Wayne Teasdale. It means that we believe underneath all of those world's religions and spiritual philosophies and life ways and paths of meaning making, we can find commonalities, particularly shared values that are important to us of peace, compassionate service, and love for the earth community. And we do practices within our services to try and cultivate those values within ourselves and within this community. And finally, we are interspecies, which means when we say earth community, we mean everyone. And this month, I'd like to highlight Indigenous peoples all around the world, and at the beginning, turkeys. Because at the beginning of every service, we draw our awareness to beings who are native to a specific habitat. Because this is Friends and Family Sunday, I'm wondering who is in your habitat? Who is in your habitat? If there is someone near you, I want to encourage you to smile at them and thank them for being part of your life. And now extend your field of vision. I might say use superpowered turkey eyes. Who else is in your habitat? Are there any dogs, cats, house companions? Take a moment to thank them for being in your life. If you have a spouse or partner or kid or animal who's not in the room with you, consider yelling out, "Thank you for being in my life." I'm going to mute myself and do just that. If that feels too odd, and you don't want to yell across your house, make a mental note to tell them after the service. And now extend your field of vision even further, past your walls, your windows, the roof, the floor. Who is in your outside habitat? This morning, a new black cat showed up outside my window. Who is in your habitat? Who is in the buildings nearby or far across the globe? Which humans and other than humans are special to you? Thank them in your mind for being a part of your life. Now comes the tricky part. And those of you that do loving kindness or metta practices probably know where I'm headed now. Bring to mind beings who are challenging for you. Those you are currently in tension with. It might be the mouse who's coming in from the cold that you're trying to coerce back outside. William did that very well this week. Or it might be a family member who you are quibbling with over the Thanksgiving menu. Got that going on in my house. Can you thank those that you're in tension with, for being in your life? And think of people you are in greater conflict with. Can you extend compassion to them for just a moment? That's the tricky one, even trickier. Yet all of our spiritual traditions remind us that compassion can be an excellent first step towards peaceful resolution of conflict. We don't need to erase deeply held differences in our opinions. We don't need to agree with everyone. But can we learn to bring compassion into those disagreements? The world right now gives us plenty of evidence of what happens when we can't. Let's just take a moment to breathe and extend compassion to any heartbreak within you about what's going on in the world around you. Bring your attention to how it feels in your body when you think of these things. For me, I get tense here. I get tense here. How does it feel in your body? Thank yourself for being present to your life in all of its messiness, the joys and the challenges. Thank yourself for being present to all of your feelings and all of your emotions. Thank yourself for being present to yourself and to your inner experience. It might feel awkward. We're not used to thanking ourselves. But this Thanksgiving, I urge you to do just that. Thank yourself and those around you for being present in your life. And speaking of presents, we have one for all of you. To thank you for being part of this community. And to thank you for everything you do to bring deep nonviolence and peace to peoples and animals and habitats around you. We wanted to share a meal with you. We wanted to sit down and gather all around the table together and laugh and cry and smile and eat delicious food. We have not figured out yet how to teleport you all to one table. Even though Phil looks like he could do it from that high-tech space bridge behind him in his Zoom box. And if Elaine reads all those books behind her, she might stumble upon the answer too. But alas, we haven't figured out how to do it yet. So instead, we have a cookbook for you to inspire your own tables. I'll put the link in the chat in just a moment, full of delicious, and I'm not a cook, and I get to say easy to make, but some of them are very easy to make, delicious food that is animal friendly and compassionate cuisine. And lastly, we make a commitment that we, as the Compassion Consortium, that we, as we each gather with our families and friends and assorted cats and dogs and my beloved squirrels and Victoria and William's pigeon roommate, that we will be thinking of connecting to you across the miles. And as we each say our own mealtime blessing, we will be thanking each of you for being in our lives. William, over to you.
Okay, so we always read our tenets at the beginning of the service. Today, our tenets will be read by Karen Kohler. She lives in Erie, Colorado, just outside of Boulder, with her husband, Rick, a Great Pyrenees St. Bernard, Stella and Morgan Mustang, and Gulliver. She is an end-of-life doula for animals, training assistant for Equisoma horse-human trauma recovery, and is currently a student in the animal chaplaincy training program. And before Karen reads our Tenets of Agreement, Karen, can you just describe your work as an end-of-life doula for animals before you read the tenets, just so that everybody can completely understand what you're doing in this realm?
Hi, William. Thank you. Yes. An end-of-life doula provides compassionate care and emotional support during an animal's dying process. So we work with the animal and their families, their human families and their animal families, in discussing medical options, quality of life care, grief. Do they think it's too soon? Do they think it's too late? We also talk about euthanasia, the choice, the bereavement, ceremony, ritual, and memorialization. And a lot of times it's just sitting and listening and being there for them.
Well, thank you very much. Could you, I mean, that was very, very helpful. And can you now read our Tenets of Agreement for us?
I would be honored. Thank you. We acknowledge a divine force at the heart of the universe and in all living beings. We may refer to this force as God, but it is known by many names and appears in different forms or as formless. We recognize the common moral principles inherent within all wisdom traditions. We affirm that compassion, reverence for life, and nonviolence are fundamental to religious faith and moral philosophy, and are to be extended to all sentient beings. We stand by the principles of inclusion, diversity, and equality, and hold these as essential in our human relations. We hold that non-human animals are imbued with the same essence of life and love as our human animals, and that there is moral parity between us. We avow that humans do not own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. We endeavor to eat and live in a kind and sustainable manner, moving away from animal foods and animal-derived clothing, as well as any activities that cause harm to our fellow beings, human or otherwise. We aim to provide spiritual comfort, fellowship, and food for thought to those practicing or exploring a vegan lifestyle. We offer guidance and peer support for all those seeking a more compassionate and spiritual life. We commit to sharing these principles freely, with humility and respect, in support of non-human animals and the earth.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Karen. Next up, we'll take those tenets into practice. So I want to invite up another member of our community, Diane Waltner. I want to say, come on down. Or come on screen, I suppose would be a better way to say that. Our practice today was created by Diane, so I just wanted her to be able to share a few words about what she was thinking when she created this, or what she'd like us to know about it. And then Phil will play the video.
Well, thank you so much. This video is a compilation of photos that I've taken over a number of years at Sedgwick County Park, which is one of the largest, if not the largest park in Wichita, Kansas. It's over 400 acres and includes 4 small lakes, a wooded area, a prairie area, and miles of foot and bike paths, and lots of ducks, geese, and other birds and squirrels. And the squirrels are so used to being fed that they will run right up to you. You'd love it, Sarah. So it's great. It's easy to get good photos of them. I've spent many, many hours there, and it's kind of been my haven a lot of times when I've just needed to get away and to talk to the trees and the animals and the earth. And so in the winter especially, it seems to be quiet and peaceful, and I just hope that you enjoy the video. Thank you. Welcome. I invite you to spend some time with me in one of my favorite parks, taking the time to slow down and appreciate the beauty of winter and a sense of awe and wonder at the amazing beings who inhabit this park. Consider this quote from Catherine May. Plants and animals don't fight the winter. They don't pretend it's not happening and attempt to carry on living the same lives that they lived in the summer. They prepare. They adapt. They perform extraordinary acts of metamorphosis to get them through. Winter is a time of withdrawing from the world, maximizing scant resources, carrying out acts of brutal efficiency, and vanishing from sight. But that's where the transformation occurs. Winter is not the death of the life cycle, but its crucible. Let's begin by taking a few deep breaths. Inhale. Hold for a few seconds, followed by a long, slow exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Once more. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Now breathe normally but mindfully, noticing each breath, and allow the peace of the other than human world to flow into you. And now I invite you to take a few more deep breaths as I offer this blessing to all the beings. May you be safe and protected. May you be secure and comfortable in your habitat. May you be free of pain and suffering, and may you be happy and healthy. May you have a beautiful day. Namaste.
Diane, I'm coming to Wichita. Post haste. Thank you so much for offering that practice for us. Victoria, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. That was so beautiful, Diane. You remind me of, many years ago, I was part of helping a young woman emigrate to the US from Tibet. And when she got here and she came to our house then in Kansas City, she was absolutely absorbed with what are these amazing little animals, because she'd never seen a squirrel before. And sometimes I think we have to look with new eyes as if we have never seen before. So we're going to do something today that is going to be very, very special. If you saw the documentary A Prayer for Compassion, then you saw this woman featured. She is Linda G. Fisher, and she really is a Renaissance woman. She is a fine artist, and I highly recommend that you visit her website, lindagfisher.com, to see some of her art. I believe it's also available on Fine Art America, just to get a sense of the animals and the spirit of animals and the spirituality of animals. It comes through her art in such an incredible way. And she is also an animal behaviorist and an animal empath, or what some people call an animal communicator, which I know is fascinating to a lot of people. And we'll be talking about that and other things. And also the fact that, as Reverend Sarah said, Linda G. Fisher is part of the Ojibwe Nation. Welcome, Linda.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be here.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. You do so many things, and we have so few minutes, so I'm going to jump right in. Let's start just a little bit, Linda, with where all of this started for you. Were you raised to care about animals more than most people, or did you just come into this earth with that?
I think a little bit of both. I know my father, he was the one who encouraged the relationship with animals. The difficulty was that, like a lot of people, they have an idea, they get animals, and then things happen in life, and then the animals are surrendered or rehomed. And so it was difficult at that time because I was saying goodbye a lot to animals that I really got attached to. But I think that his love for animals, his kind of love, connected me to the animal spirit in a sort of backward way. So we did have animals, which I really deeply enjoyed and appreciated.
Well, I think that what you're saying about being connected to the spirit of the animal is so much the essence of you. A lot of people work with animals. They're very kind to animals. They have an understanding of animals. Yours seems to go a little bit beyond that. So why don't we just go there first and talk about the spirit of animals and how you are able to connect with them as an empath?
I've written about this in one of the books I co-authored. Was my first experience with really understanding that connection and that spirit with animals was when my father took us fishing when we were children. I think I was probably only like maybe 7 years old, or 6 or 7. And it was one of those lakes where they put fish in the lake so people can pay to go fishing. And so that was my first experience, and all the kids were happy, and there were other families there with their children. And I was super excited too, because I thought this was going to be a fun outing with my family. And right off the bat, I caught a fish. and the feeling of the fish tugging on the line, I just had this instant, powerful connection and terror. I could feel everything that fish was feeling. And I screamed. It was a horrible feeling. And I can still remember that so clearly. And I screamed and cried, and I dropped the fishing pole. And the fish, so my father ran over really fast, and he picked up the pole and he said, you got to, showing me how to reel it in. I just couldn't do it. So it was a very traumatic experience, even though he was trying so hard to make it a positive one. So I think that was my first experience in understanding that animals, including fish, feel fear. And so from then on, it just got stronger and stronger. So I think I started when I was, even before then.
So now when you communicate with animals, just explain to us what that is, because I know some people are very skeptical about that. I've certainly been skeptical in my life, and then I'll have an experience that's remarkable and I'll think, well, maybe you shouldn't be so skeptical. But for people who maybe have never even heard of animal communication, what is it? Is it real? Is everybody who says they're good at it good at it?
It's very real, but I think there are a lot of wonderful animal communicators who are very legitimate, very authentic, compassionate people. And then I think that others are not as they claim to be. I think their intentions are good, but it just isn't the same. And I'm very different than, I guess, the average animal communicator. And I actually call myself an animal empath. Because that more closely fits what I feel is really happening. I once was reading or read or saw on a program, I don't even remember where, but an animal communicator told this woman what her dog was feeling and said she needed to read a book on her shelf to help her get through a relationship problem. And prior to that, I always wanted to stay very I didn't want to be out in the public eye. I didn't want to be scrutinized. I didn't want to be criticized or made fun of. I was very shy, very introverted. But when I heard that, I go, that's not how it is. Animals don't tell you to read a book on a shelf. Nor do they ask. They say that the chicken wants to sacrifice itself by laying its head on the chopping block to make your dinner, which an animal communicator that I actually thought was a wonderful communicator was saying. And I just said, no, this isn't right. So anyhow, that's when I decided to kind of come out of the animal communicator closet and start what I feel is the more accurate description of what's happening between the relationship, the communication between humans and animals.
So what's it like for those of us who have never experienced it, or maybe we have and don't even know that we have? What's it like? I think many of us have not had an experience of even telepathy, human to human. So the idea that an other than human being could communicate to us what they're thinking or feeling seems pretty alien. If you could describe it, that would be really cool.
Well, I think it is really alien the way on average. I mean, people can take a class and then suddenly they're an animal communicator and, they're doing this. And then the instructor's telling them to use their imagination. But I don't believe it works. That's just my opinion. I don't believe it works that way. I think you have to have a natural instinct of empathy for others, including humans and animals, in order to really do the work. And if that's not there, then I don't feel like you can really give a complete, accurate description. And I am more for me, it's more, I guess I could explain it as like a radio transmission coming to me. It's not, I just take away all the anthropomorphic concepts of it. It's more their natural communication. And then when it comes to me, it's kind of an interpretation of what I believe is happening or what they're communicating. But it's not, it's not like somebody's coming in and saying, well, gee, I don't like Joe. You need to get a different boyfriend, and, that kind of thing. It's just different. It's just a more natural way that animals really communicate with each other. And I think watching animals together, if you have companion animals, and seeing how they communicate is probably a really great way to learn what I'm feeling, and what many others are probably feeling. It's just not what the average person perceives it to be. And as I mentioned, taking a class and then suddenly, to me, that is kind of alien. I don't understand that.
I think it's a little bit like psychic gifts in the human world. I don't know that I know anybody who said, oh, I'm going to become a fake psychic and make a lot of money. I think the people that do that really do want to help, but I would really like to sing at the Metropolitan Opera. It's not going to happen. And so it's very beautiful when somebody like you who has the gift also wants to use it. I want to ask you a bit about a particular kind of animal, because I know that you have a special affinity, and that is a parrot.
Yes.
And we do, our wonderful Elaine, who's going to be doing the next interview, had a wonderful pigeon companion who did leave the earth in the past month. So condolences continuing to go out to Elaine. But is it different when a parrot communicates with you than, say, a dog?
Not really. It's no, not really. I think, parrots obviously are very intelligent, even our tiny little budgies. And that's how I started getting very involved in parrot advocacy, because I don't believe parrots should be kept as pets, but they need to be rescued, just like a lot of other animals that ended up in the pet trade. But the communication is the same. It's like animal behavior work that I do. It works the same with a goldfish as it does for an elephant, that everything's the same. And the same is with the communication between a parrot and a dog, or a parrot and a monkey, or, a raccoon. Not that we're training raccoons per se, but yeah, it's pretty much the same.
So let's, Linda, talk a little bit about the intersection of your native culture and spirituality and your work with animals.
I think, well, growing up, I didn't have that training. My mother would talk to me about some of her experiences as a child and her life on the reservation, or the places that she lived. And at the time when I wasn't that interested in it, I kind of listened and then didn't absorb it. It was only later, when I was older and appreciated what she was saying. But growing up, there was not that real connection. I learned after the fact. I learned as I became an adult and became more interested in native culture and the ancient traditions and how they lived with the animals.
So this is a difficult time of year for people who are native to this continent. Can you talk a little bit about the whole Thanksgiving thing for someone with your heritage?
They really don't celebrate Thanksgiving. At least some tribal members don't necessarily celebrate Thanksgiving the way we do. And it's more of a giving thanks in general for life and this beautiful planet we live on, rather than Columbus Day and things like, that. So it's not as much of a big deal. And it's celebrated again more. If it's going to be Thanksgiving, it's Thanksgiving for family, Thanksgiving for, again, our beautiful planet and the things that we can do to make it safer for our other species, including ourselves.
One of the things that has long kind of annoyed me is when people say, white people, well, I eat meat the way the Native Americans ate meat, and I pray for the soul of the animal. And there are just so many layers of why that's troubling. And I understand not everybody is vegetarian. We're all on a journey. We're all, trying every day to be better than we were yesterday. But I have a hard time with that one. Can you, as a Native person, address that?
I have a problem with it too, because first of all, during the times when Native tribes had to hunt to survive, and granted, some families still do to make it through the winter, some areas, especially on some reservations, that are low income. But that's completely different than the average person who goes out on the weekend or a holiday to celebrate their time off, to go as a recreation, hunt and kill, and then they give thanks to the animal. It's in my opinion, it's like a betrayal to the animal, because it didn't have to happen. And most of those people who go out and kill an animal and then give thanks, I ask, do you really understand what that means? Do you really understand what it means to take that life? And it would be, I'd like to hear what that means, just so I understand where they're coming from. But for me personally, I think if you really want to give thanks, you should protect these animals and give thanks that you can do that, and to help make our planet safe and healthy. That's what I think we should be giving blessings to. We don't need to kill the animals and do that to them.
So we're kind of church, kind of synagogue, kind of ashram, kind of mosque. We're all that stuff and others together. So I would love to ask you, Linda, how can you describe your spiritual life? Just what's your worldview? How do you see the big picture?
Oh, wow, that's a big question.
It is, I know.
Well, I have to live my life in a way that makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel like I've not harmed any creature, and that I can sit back and say I did my best to make the world a better place and not to cause pain or suffering. And I think, going back to the conversation about being an animal communicator, I think where it starts is truly being a compassionate person, because once you feel that empathy and that compassion, that's when you start connecting so deeply, which is what animal communicators should be doing. And I think in my life, I just try my best to do the right thing. And to me, to do the right thing is not to cause harm. And animals feel joy, they feel fear, they hurt, they struggle, they play, they laugh internally. So, they have feelings, and we can't ignore that. So from my perspective, I want to feel good that I lived a kind life.
You live a kind life, and you live a beautiful life, and you bring a lot of beauty to the world through just what you radiate, what you do in your work with animals, because I know a lot of people have animals and they acquire these animals with all the best of intention, and then they don't know what to do when the animal starts acting like an animal. So how wonderful that some people have access to your expertise in that way. But I do want to ask about your art, because I'm not visual. So it's very seldom that I am moved by art. A few times. There's a very, well, he's well known in kind of esoteric circles, an artist called Nicholas Roerich. And there's a museum of his work here in New York City. He was a theosophist. He left Russia during the revolution and ended up in the Himalayas. And a lot of his best works are done on cardboard because he couldn't get canvas. But he used these just amazing colors. It's almost like when I look at his work, I see heaven, not earth. It's the same when I look at yours, although yours are obviously of the most beautiful and extraordinary parts of earth, because it's these animals with their spirits just shining forth. So tell us about the art. Are these actual animals you have seen with your eyes, or these animals you've seen with your soul? How do you do it, and where can we look at it?
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. Well, some of the animals are animals that I have seen. Some are animals that I've experienced and had an experience with. And I wanted to kind of tell their story when I got home in my studio. And others, you know, just reading an article about something that moved me either in a good way or a frightened way, I wanted, as an artist, to bring that, you know, to canvas and paint what I was feeling. But mostly my art is representative of how we need to become a part of nature and a part of those animals. Speaking of animals, I have my assistant here and she's getting wiggly. So it's just, a lot of my paintings have animals who are a human who is transforming into an animal, or they're having wings, or they're having, you know, spots. And that's because when I started doing this, I want people, it's a part of empathy. It's a part of feel how that feels to have those wings. And when I do animal communication work, and my animal empathic work, I literally can feel the way an animal walks within myself. If it's whatever animal that might be, I can feel the gait, and it's hard to explain. I can't ever explain it to people, but I can feel how a snake feels when they're going through the grass. And that's just, so when I paint, I'm trying to kind of convey that same feeling.
Well, you convey it beautifully. So Linda G. Fisher, thank you so much for being a person with wings and for gracing us today at the Compassion Consortium. Bless you.
So Reverend Sarah selected this song called Yemeya to honor the many cultures entwined within that word. For example, Yemeya is the major water spirit from the Yoruba religion, and in Aramaic, transcript in Spanish, the syllables lead us to definitions of water and holiness as well. This specific song by Gabriel, Meyer, Halevy, and Amir, Paiss is from an album with Spanish, Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic influences to celebrate what the artists call the Torah of Deep Ecology. The song also features animal musicians from the natural world. So we offer this to honor Native American Heritage Month for peoples in the more North and South Americas, as well as the Jewish tradition, extending our cultural appreciation to peoples and animals of all lands and waters. And so now, Phil, can you play the song?
Within the forest, there is a place where butterflies dance, full of grace. Monkeys and lizards, rivers and trees are woven together, now and forever. Stars in the sky, diamonds of night, eyes into eyes, kindness of light. Within the forest, there is a space where hearts of the world are leaving a trace to be discovered, unfolded and nourished, simple and silent, tunes for the dance. Yemeya, 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 Yemeya. The days of Jah, the waters of Jah. 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 Los días de Jah, las aguas de 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 Jah. Yemeya, 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 Yemeya. Within the forest, there is a place, simple and silent, tunes for the dance.
Yes, that was a beautiful song. And thank you very much, Sarah, for bringing that to our attention. So now I think is next, we're supposed to have our compassion in action.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Today in Compassion in Action, we're talking with William Radinson. Everyone, in Compassion in Action today, William's an educator, He is a Catholic. He's a member of the advisory board to Christ the King School in the Bronx, New York. He's been a vegan for more than 34 years, and he's a longtime supporter of many animal protection organizations, such as the Animal Legal Defense Fund, Farm Sanctuary, the American Vivisection Society, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. William, I'm going to welcome you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We're thrilled. William does some very important work. He educates children about ethical choices in eating and general, humane treatment of animals. One question several of us are curious about, William. Those of us that are not Catholic have no familiarity with the dogmas and tenets and how that works in a Catholic education situation. How did you introduce this sometimes controversial topic into your teaching curriculum?
Okay, so let me just make sure that I characterize this as best as I can. This all started in about the fall of 2019. I had been on the advisory board since 2017, and in a conversation with the principal, Stephen Ayuso, he told me that there was a teacher that was really interested in teaching about kindness to animals. And I said, well, I'm involved with a lot of animal rights organizations, protection organizations. I support them, and I can get you some material. So I proceeded to get some material from Teach Kind, from PETA's Teach Kind program. And the teacher started teaching about compassion to animals in a religion class. And so that gave me the idea. I said, well, that's not too far. I can probably do something here. So I started developing a prototype. Basically, I took each grade from kindergarten to 8th and picked a month during the year and essentially tried to match the religion pacing guide of the New York City Archdiocese, which is based on Sadler, and with basically things that I was aware of humane education. I haven't been involved with animal rights organizations, animal protection organizations, and started to marry them and say, the Catholic social teaching, which I was a little bit familiar with, actually allows me the room to do this. So that's how I started. That's how the initial prototype guide started. And then once I got that, I actually flagged that by, I had a principal, a woman named Kathy Hofnagel, who used to work for the Archdiocese and I guess on the development side. And she reviewed it and she said, this has really a lot of potential. Why don't you think about developing the guide fully? I said, okay. So then I developed the guide for every grade from K through 8, every month of the school year, again, using Sadler and using the religion pacing guide of the New York City Archdiocese. And that's how the guide came to be. And essentially then my other readings with the Catholic social teaching, I was trying to make the guide sort of accessible to teachers that they could use it in the New York City Archdiocese. And that's how the whole thing sort of began. What I can't tell you, and I don't want to in any way, I guess, how would I call it, misstate, is that I'm still trying to get teachers to use it at the New York City Archdiocese. The head of religion curriculum in the Archdiocese has actually told me that, and she wrote to me in an email, that this guide can be used as optional curriculum. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually sending emails to each of the principals of the New York City Archdiocese of schools K through 8. I started out just recently, and essentially introducing the whole idea of the guide and see if they will use it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I just want to make sure I characterize that correctly for all of the people that are on this beautiful service.
Well, I love that you're pushing that work forward. It is some of the most important work I think we can do to help animals, is to teach children a different viewpoint. I can't imagine how it would have affected my life if I had received that message in school when I was young. It's tremendous what you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about the Care for God's Creation, which is from the Catholic Social Teaching Scripture Guide?
Right. Well, I got introduced to that about, I would say, close to 10 years ago, because my journey in the Catholic Church began, my wife is a lifelong Catholic, and she sort of got me to get to the church in about 1963. I'm sorry, when I was 63, I tend to confuse these things, which is about 10 years ago, roughly. And then as I started taking courses at St. Francis of Assisi Adult Education, one of the courses was on care for creation. I'm sorry, Catholic social teaching. And in there's about the rights and responsibilities of the poor. And there is a whole section on care for creation. And that was my first introduction into that, into finding out that my interest about protecting animals and caring for animals was not incompatible with the Catholic social teaching. And that I also found out that there are many saints that, of course, have made it their life being, caring for animals, not just Francis of Assisi, which is one that everybody tends to know about. And so, in fact, the guide is full of references to saints and others who put their sort of made it their life's mission to care about animals. And so that's why that's how I was able to look at the guide and see this is not in any way, I'm not in any way doing anything that's not compatible with the basic teachings of the Catholic Church.
I love hearing that, and I didn't know that. I think it's something that a lot more people need to hear about. We just don't hear about that side of Catholicism at all. You've also mentioned that you're working on a book, an animal compassion prayer book, okay. Nourishment for Activists. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, that I'm starting now. So here's the idea behind that. Every day, twice a day, I pray the St. Francis prayer book. And so if you're familiar with the prayer book gives you an opportunity to sort of get into a space where admittedly you're not in the times of St. Francis, but you're in a space where you're with the Lord and you're communing with the Lord. You're trying to understand, how can you live a life that is truly, I guess, one that is in keeping with no harm to anyone, and basically trying to look and see the love of everyone that you see around you. And so I said, it would be interesting to have a prayer book like this for people who are animal activists and animal compassion activists who perhaps, regardless of their faith tradition, admittedly, I'm coming from a Catholic tradition, I get that, but could I develop something like that? And so I started working on that several months ago and trying to follow that St. Francis prayer bike where I have a morning prayer, an evening prayer. I have references to Laudato Si, references to the latest Laudato Deum. Also have certain Catholic poetry, because I have a book that goes back to the turn of the century, this book on Catholic poetry. And I was able to find poems that reference about care for animals from different Catholic authors that I wanted to include in the guide, just to give people a little bit of a, how would I call it, just inspiration, if you will. And then I looked at the Bible, and specifically, I was, I guess, must be the Holy Spirit that sort of motivated me to look at the letters from St. Paul, because the letters of St. Paul are to new communities. And so the way I'm looking at it is that animal activists, let's face it, we're new communities. We're not, we're just trying to basically pass the gospel on to other people. And so that's kind of how I started getting into developing the guide in such a way, I should say the prayer book, so that I could reflect that, and that somebody can be inspired by perhaps, again, my variation and my adaptation of the letter of St. Paul to the Thessalonians, but it's trying to get animal activists to kind of look at it. My life is there's a transcending thing to my life, and this is part of it. And so that's the idea behind the prayer book. I'm still editing it. My wife is she's a really good editor, so she's the one who's looking at it right now to make sure that it's ready for prime time. It's not yet.
Well, let us know. We're looking forward to seeing it when you publish it, and it's much needed. Activists need all the comfort they can get. One quick question before we end. What is the one thing each of us can do today after we leave here to make the world a more compassionate place? That's a tall order.
That's a tall order. When I thought about your question initially, I think it's all about the children. I think we have to work with them. They're the only ones that can save us from, let's face it, we're on a path to climate catastrophe, the way it's going in this world. And it seems to me that anything we could do to get those fruits of the children, to be able to, anything that we could do. That's why I'm on this UFT, Humane Education Committee. And what I'm trying to do there is trying to get teachers there to help, to get them to get trained in humane education, because believe it or not, that's, humane education, as you all know, can be taught in science, technology, engineering, mathematics curriculum. So it's not an easy thing to teach. But meanwhile, you got to get people trained. So I'm looking for any and all opportunities, frankly, to help the children, because I worry about them. My best friends just recently had his daughter was born August 25th. Her name is Anne. And I thought, I said, what world are we leaving for Anne? I mean, for God's sake, what are we doing? What can we do better for Anne?
Yeah.
So that to me is, that's why I'm, it's all about children. That's why I will continue to do this work and see what I can do to put my little grain of sand, if you will, as we say in Spanish, granito de arena, put it in there to see if what we can do and help.
Well, bless you, William, and bless your work, because it is a blessing on this world. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. God bless you all. It's a pleasure just seeing all of you, seeing your wonderful faces, and seeing all the program that you shared on this service. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Sarah, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, William. Thank you, Elaine. We have been talking a lot today about beings with wings, haven't we? So we're going to close. I'm going to start with a little more about beings with wings as we begin our blessings and prayers segment today. We take a moment to honor Karen Davis, who was crucial to bringing the issues of those with wings into the animal rights movement. If you missed hearing about Karen while she was alive, I'd like to introduce you to her work posthumously through a piece that one of our advisory boards, Martin Rowe, recently wrote to honor her. And I'm putting that in the chat for you. Take that snip and read it after the service if you are interested. We offer blessings on Karen. May her memory be a blessing. May her work be widely dispersed. And may her family and friends be comforted at this time. And for the rest of our blessings today, to wrap up this portion of our service before we all head to fellowship, or some of us head to fellowship, we will be led by Jennifer Baker, who's a new member of our team. She's joining us as our special events coordinator. We are so excited. We know Jennifer from our animal chaplaincy program. She's a recent graduate, and she's just fabulous. So we're excited to have her fresh eyes and spirit with us. Let me tell you a little bit about her, and then I'm going to hand it on over. Jennifer has always had a deep love and passion for animals, which she has proudly instilled in her two sons. Hey, William. Yes, it's about the children, and takes great joy in seeing them continue the rescue and care of forgotten animals. Professionally, Jennifer has a diverse background. Starting at an advertising firm in California, she's now a charter school director. However, the most unique and rewarding aspect of Jennifer's journey is her newfound role as an ordained animal chaplain through Compassion Consortium. She recently resides in Prescott, Arizona, with her husband, Lucas, who we've nicknamed an underfoot because he was with us at our retreat and under our feet like the goats are at Catskill Animal Sanctuary. So hello, Lucas. I know you're a friend and family here today. And they're two faithful and bonded beagles. In addition to her other roles, Jennifer has also started her own animal chaplain business, Paiss for Compassion. Paiss for Compassion. She's excited to utilize her extensive background and calling to support our outreach as our special events coordinator. So Jennifer, without further ado, I am going to hand the floor, the mic, the Zoom box, the entire thing on over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So if you feel comfortable today, I invite you to put a hand on your heart and close your eyes for our closing blessing. Let us take a deep breath together. Start our blessing. Let us take a moment to think of those suffering everywhere and how we can collectively generate and send love and support to them today. Let us always practice love and compassion for all beings, the earth, the sky, and everything in between, including ourselves. May we celebrate animal spirits, respect their importance in this world, and hold them in a loving, sacred space, offering blessings, kindness, and comfort. May all beings be loved, supported, and honored equally. And may we grow together, strengthening and supporting each other on our paths to do this, illuminating light into our world. And so it is. Thank you, Sarah.
Jennifer, thank you so much for that. I hope folks felt that right in the heart space. And we'll wrap together with the words that we close all of our services with. Phil, if you will bring up our closing prayer slide. And folks, if you have someone who's in need of blessings or prayers, you feel free to put those in the chat. I always take your list with me after every service, and I pray on those for the days following our services. So please feel free to put them in there. Phil will open the chat. And if you will recite these words or feel these words or offer these words along with Jennifer and I as we read them together. May all creatures everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of our lives contribute to this happiness
and this
freedom,
freedom.
For all. And may it be so, amen, amen, so mote it be, om shanti, shanti, shanti. Whatever your closing word is from your tradition, please feel free to add it to our prayer here. William, this was so great. We should do it again. Why don't you tell us some announcements and what's coming up next month?
Okay, all right. So I want to thank you for joining us today. I would like to now know about a few upcoming events. First of all, don't forget to download your copy of the Thanksgiving e-cookbook. Also to remind you, I think you all this know by now, but our Sunday service is now on the third Sunday of each month. So I think everybody knows that. And then on December 17th, we have a couple of really, really cool guests. Dr. Claire Lindsay is the Deputy Director of the Oxford Center for Animal Ethics and the Director of the annual Oxford Animal Ethics Summer School. She is also a professor of animal theology at the Graduate Theological Foundation. And then also, we will have our Compassion in Action guest on December 17, the legendary Miyoko Shea, creator of Miyoko's Kitchen, the undisputed vegan cheese. Well, actually, the last thing I wanted to announce is that on December 12th, we will be having our engaged member practice circle. It's a Tonglen for animal activists. It's a Buddhist practice for transforming anger and suffering. And I think that is pretty much what I was going to say about our announcements.